Welcome back to Pitso. Slaughtering livestock plays a major part in cultural practices in South Africa. Recently, the Buffalo City Municipality released a statement on social media about permits that are required to carry these practices in one's own home. This was followed by an uproar, especially from the Black community. Now, joining us to discuss this, we have the municipality's spokesperson, Samkelo Ngwenya. Hi, Samkelo. Good morning and welcome to Pitso.
Morning and welcome to everyone as well.
Samkelo, we've seen the statement that was released. Can you please just explain what does it mean?
Well, basically, we're picking up that as a city, particularly in this time of the year, there's a lot of traditional ceremonies that are taking place. And a huge part of them is the fact that people are slaughtering animals as part of culture and rituals. And we are picking up that people are not aware in our city that there is a process that needs to be followed when one is going to be slaughtering an animal into their yard or having such type of an event that involves many people that are descending into their yard. And as such, we are reminding the community of Buffalo City that there is a bylaw that needs to be followed. We're also reminding the community of Buffalo City that there's a need for us to be tolerant when it comes to issues of this nature. We also need to embrace this new and upcoming phenomenon of seeing these events happening more and more in the suburban areas. This has been happening a lot in the rural areas, but we're picking up that, in between the October and now, we've had 214 such events in our suburban area. So it becomes important that we raise awareness to our communities on how to conduct themselves during those events.
Samkelo, what are the factors that really drove to this decision?
Well, it's a number of factors. For instance, at some point, we do pick up that people, when they do not make such applications to the municipality to get a permit to conduct these events, leads to challenges. One of such challenges is that the neighbors end up calling the police because they are being inconvenienced, be it through parking, be it through noise levels, or be it through general hygiene. Secondly, we're picking up that people are not adhering to proper ways in which to actually keep animals, slaughter animals, and even dispose of the carcass. It also causes a huge inconvenience for health and hygiene. And then thirdly, we're also picking up that people do not even go to an extent of informing neighbors of that they are going to be holding these events. And cultural tolerance is important, but it will always be more important if people around the neighborhood are embracing it as a whole. One, for instance, in Kids Beach, we had to be called in and come into a family that was conducting this event, and they had to do an application on the last minute because the neighbors were complaining that the smoke was going to their yard and there were lots of types of nuisances. So we want to guide this process so that we do not have these such problems that are taking place, because there's a lot of these events. And we should remind each other, our yards in suburban areas are not as big as in rural areas where you can afford, to dispose of an animal without, your neighbors seeing what you're doing and that affecting other people outside your other yard.
Now, Samkelo, how does one now go about getting a permit? What are the requirements of getting a permit?
Well, it's a simple exercise. In the rural areas, there's a system already that involves the traditional leaders. People get dates there. It's well cultured. It's well processed. But when it comes to township and suburban areas, we're urging people to contact us so that we actually give them a form so that we can actually tell them what to do. We've got offices all over the city, and we have got norms and things that we're going to be expecting them to do in terms of when they're doing that application. And I must emphasize, we have not turned down any application. So the process is really to guide, but we cannot have a situation where a neighbor, after disposing of a carcass, they put stuff on top of the neighbor's fence. So we want people to contact us. We'll bring in our health inspectors. It could be telephonic. It's technology, you could do it on emails, or we could come in. But at the end of the day, we really want the community of Buffalo City to be mindful when conducting these rituals, to tell their people not to urinate in other people's yards, not to park in other people's driveways, to watch the issues of smoke. And those are the things that we can guide, including up to the level of how an animal should be treated before slaughtering and how it should be kept. And of course, we are mindful of the fact that funeral services are totally different from this. Sometimes funeral services are quick nature. So we also are mindful of that. But we want people to really make contact with the municipality and be aware of this bylaw.
Samkelo, you mentioned that so far there are no rejections. And in the process of applying for a permit, is it possible for a person to get declined? And what is it based on?
Well, look, we've got simple things that we're expecting you to do when you're going to do such a thing. Firstly, we would want to have a notification within 2 weeks prior to the event. And of course, your application should come to us having informed your neighbors to say that I'm going to be having this ceremony on this particular date. I mean, that's a standard norm, especially in Black communities, in townships and rural areas. But in suburbs, people don't talk to each other. You'll drive in and you'll find there's a big ceremony taking place. We also want to tell you what you must do with the slaughtering, how you must keep the animals in a hygienic manner. We wouldn't want to have meat and offal being sold or being hanged on walls. And those are the things. And then we've got also cut-off time where we say from 10 o'clock onwards, you should be mindful of your music and your sound and your noise so that you can be mindful of your neighbors. So if you do not adhere to those, I might have to reconsider your application because clearly it means that you are not embracing the neighborly spirit. But ultimately, like I said, at one stage we were called into a committee that was already conducting a ceremony, and we had to assist, to try and quell the tension between the neighbors. And of course, we put in place, certain fines so that people can actually at least take the bylaw seriously. And we're hoping that moving forward, now that people are getting to be aware of it, they'll make the simple gesture of picking up a phone and calling us and telling us that they're going to be doing these things. You really don't want to have SPCA in your yard at this day and age and having all sorts of challenges around something that is so simple and something that is so acceptable and something that we should all be embracing, because culture is a good thing, but it's very important for us, not just slaughtering of animals, any cultural events, whether it's going to be Diwali, there's going to be fireworks. You need to tell us as a municipality so that we can actually tell you the process where you must discharge fireworks and how you must go about telling your neighbors. Because at the end of the day, we have to be in a lawful society.
Now, Samkelo, what if in an instant when you are telling your neighbors and your neighbors they don't agree to it? What are the steps that you can take? And also, is it can you take steps looking at the fact that maybe you already have the permit from the municipality? What can be done at a situation like that?
We're trying to become mediators in this instance. So our bylaws does not say you require permission from your neighbors. Our bylaw is saying you need to inform them. In the rural areas, there's a committee, there's traditional leaders. You go to the traditional council and you tell the council, and the whole village knows. In the suburbs, you can do that in a WhatsApp group. You can send them letters, scan the letter, send it, or even go from neighbor to neighbor, but they need to be informed so that they do not have a situation whereby they can even up to the level of calling police or interdict you in court. So there's no situation where a neighbor can say, no, I do not want this to happen next to my neighbor because I do not agree with it. But ultimately, we really serve as mediators. We try, and even if it's different races, even if it's different cultures, we try by all means to make people understand that this is the situation that we are all facing, and we should be tolerant. We must say, the boom that is taking place in our city, because now the Mikiti has no longer become small event. Usually kids coming from the bush, it used to be small events, a few people coming through. But now we're seeing marquees, we're seeing stages, we're seeing cows being slaughtered. So there's a lot of festivity, and it's a good thing for our city. But at the same time, it brings across things that people should be mindful of. You cannot just close the street and pitch up a tent just because you are in a celebratory mood. It's going to affect your neighbors. Mindful of it. If you're making a fire, your smoke, you should actually be mindful of where's your smoke going. So those are the things that we want to come in as a municipality and guide it. We really do not want to make headlines as Buffalo City when neighbors are at each other's throats. And it's going to lead to that if we do not actually guide this process. Because think about it, 214 applications. That's a lot of events. I mean, you can find in a situation in one street, there's about 3 or 4 of such events. So we have to guide this process. And we're really hoping that the people are going to embrace this. They're not going to view us as government as trying to dictate culture, impose on culture. Not at all. We actually just tolerance.
Samkelo, just the last question before you leave us. How many people have been fined so far during this festive season, and are they complying?
Well, we haven't fined anyone. We really want that to be the last resort. That's why in terms of our fining categories, we've got 3 categories. We've got the first offense, we've got the second offense, we've got the third offense. We really don't want to stop you from doing the ceremony. But we're coming in because we're also aware that people are not aware of this bylaw. People have been carrying on as normal. So we're actually coming in and we're actually trying to guide that process. So we really don't want to get to a situation where we actually have to fine people. But if it continues like this, we're going to have no choice but to actually do it. But at the same time, so far, I mean, up to this festive season and this date, we've had a good response. We can see in social media, people are not happy about it. But those that are picking up the phone and contacting us, those that want to know how does this go about, how does this work, they really get a good response from our health and environmental officers who really guide them of the process. And we're hoping that it's going to lead to actually to more awareness and better hygiene, neighborly tolerance, and we're actually going to have more and more of a cultural boom of this nature, which is something that is very, very good, even for our economy, by the way, and teaching each other different races of how does culture work and what does it mean, so that you cannot view culture from your own point of view. We are here as government to guide that process and make sure that the people of Buffalo City are embracing it at all times.
Thank you so much, Samkelo, for your time here on Pitso. Enjoy the rest of your day.